Good morning, Recovery Fitness. Sean Humphrey here to talk a little bit more about the four pillars of fitness. We did start that last week with the physical element, the work, the body, the exercise, the nutrition, things of that nature. And as promised, this week I wanted to touch on spirituality. So the four pillars are mental health, emotional health, physical health, and spiritual health. So, spirituality and what it is to me and how it relates to recovery, most importantly. I'm not going to talk about, the spiritual experiences or the spiritual awakenings in the terms of aha God moments or God conscious. Now, certainly I do believe that for me, but that's for me. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about that next week. But I want to talk about the higher power, the vital spiritual experience that's required to achieve recovery, and how it works in our days as addicts and alcoholics. So, what we've been taught through the program is that we have a problem, and that problem is two parts. Now, it's not two equal parts, it's about 75-25. So, the first part of my problem is as an addict and alcoholic, I have a physical allergy. Physical allergy to drugs and alcohol. It's that simple. An allergy is described as something that is an abnormal reaction to. So, for example, my abnormal reaction to alcohol is once I start drinking it, I want more, and I can't wait to get more, and my body craves and craves it. The normal temperate drinker doesn't do that. The alcohol goes into the body, they get a little maybe lightheaded, they might feel queasy. They remember the effects of having of having too much, what it feels like the next morning, and they choose not to. For the addict and alcoholic, once we put that into our body, we then affect the craving. That physical allergy becomes alive, and we really don't have a choice. The brain is off, the monster inside is awakening. So the physical allergy, that's the first part. That's only 25% of the problem, though. As a sane person, if I'm allergic to strawberries, and I know strawberries are going to end me up in a hospital. I'm going to wind up in a hospital. I can't breathe. They got to do treatments on me, or maybe they got to trach me. If I don't get there in time, I might die. But I'm obsessed with strawberries, so I got to have them. So I know if I'm having a normal reaction and a normal way of thinking, if I have a physical allergy to strawberries, I just don't eat them. I never touch them again. I might look at them and say, hey, they're great, they're tasty, they look awesome, but I can't have them because what they're going to do to me. But I have an obsession with strawberries. So that's the second part of our problem. We have a mental obsession about drugs and alcohol. And that can only be described as something that's inside us that just tells us and takes away our willpower. It speaks to us in our own voice and our own manipulative ways and says it's okay to have just one. Kind of like it's okay to have just one strawberry. It's been 3 weeks. It's been 3 months since you had one. You're doing pretty good. You've probably built up a tolerance. You can have just one and quit. But the average person who doesn't have any abnormal reaction knows that they can't have that strawberry. Same way with alcohol and drugs. For the normal person, for the average person. But for those of us with the physical allergy who have that abnormal reaction, once the mental obsession kicks in, and we put that in us, we're off to the races. So how do we overcome that mental obsession that's always taking our willpower away from us, making it insufficient? Willpower won't do it. Because quite frankly, as much willpower as we want to exert on the situation, the mental obsession says, it's okay. It gives us permission. You had a bad day. It's okay. Your wife is being, it's okay. Your job is, it's okay. You can have one. Hey man, things are going great. Let's celebrate. You can have just one. That was for me. Hey, it's Friday. You got a big check. Let's go. You can have just one. You're not even working tomorrow, so what's it hurt if you're a little hurting? But we all know what it hurts. It's not just tomorrow. It keeps going and going and going, and that's because of the physical allergy. So it's a two-part problem. It's 75% mental obsession, 25% physical. So I got a malady of the body and of the mind. But there's a solution, In problem one, we're powerless. That physical allergy and the mental obsession, we're powerless over that. But in part two, in step two, we find a new power. If we don't have power, we need to get power. But it's not from ourselves. It can't be from ourselves because we've tried self, and self hasn't worked. So there's two parts to my answer. two parts to the solution. And again, it's a 75-25 split. The fellowship of a 12-step program will help bring about recovery. However, the fellowship by itself is insufficient. We've all heard about meeting makers make it. Well, meeting makers make meetings, and they don't always even do that. How many of us have gotten drunk or high on the way to a meeting or after a meeting? So the meeting makers make meetings, but that's absolutely part of our solution. We have to go, but that's where we go to see other fellow addicts and alcoholics, to speak with them and witness them working the steps and learn how to work the steps. So you got it. The 75% part of my problem is a vital spiritual experience, which can only occur by applying the spiritual principles in all the steps. Now, spiritual experience in terms as we use in AA, NA, or anything else in 12-step group is just a renewal of the mind. It's something powerful enough to bring sufficient change within the mind and the thinking. So, the big book even calls it a psychological change of the brain. But I like the renewal of the mind. Where I once acted in one way, now I'm acting in an opposite way. So for me, as an addict and alcoholic, my principles, I guess you could say, I was selfish and dishonest. Every addict and alcoholic is. We have to be. We can't not be selfish and dishonest and still be addicts, because we have to get what we need, what we require. And we do need it and require it until we've learned how to get around it, because otherwise we're just sick and suffering. So unless I get honest, unless I get out of self and start serving others, I'm in trouble as an addict and alcoholic. And that helps my vital spiritual experience. Where I once was selfish and I was always thinking of myself, now I turn that. I turn it around, and now I think of others first before me. Instead of being dishonest in any way, whether it be something really small or something big, I now practice honesty, even in those small things you don't think matter, because they do matter. It matters how we react to things in life. And then the other spiritual principle is acceptance. I could never accept anything. So now I try, it's a try, to practice acceptance in everything. It is what it is. Everything right now is happening for a reason. How else could it not? Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be in God's world and God's plan. Because I know I didn't control anything. I didn't create anything. So everything that's going on is out of my control. I cannot control the snow today. I cannot control what other people do or say about me. Can't do it. It's none of my business anyway. But it's hard. It's not easy. It is a practice. That's why we call it a spiritual practice. But the solution is where we gain the power back. But we do that through a power greater than ourselves. By going to fellowship, that's a power greater than ourselves. That's a group of individuals coming together to work on one common goal. But the fellowship is insufficient. The fellowship has to go with working the steps. And that's where we find that vital spiritual experience. Each and every day. Each and every day. Then after that point, I need to come to a decision. That's step 3. And my decision has to be that I find a higher power and I turn my life and my will over to a power greater than myself. That's the only way. It is the only way to recover from drugs and alcohol, in my opinion. We have to get out of self and realize that we can't do it. We don't run the show. Once we realize that and we have acceptance and surrender, then we can start behaving differently. And those changes that we're changing and behaving differently bring about recovery. Okay, so these are what I call the contemplation steps, where I'm making contemplations about these decisions. And then I get into 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's where recovery is learned. Step 4 is where I take that moral inventory. It's my good and my bad. Everything that maybe I've done that doesn't sit right with me or I know was wrong, as well as all the positive things I bring. It's just an inventory, just like any store clerk or manager would do. Every so often, we take an inventory of what we have in stock that's good and what we have in stock is bad. And we remove the bad, bring in the good, and grow and sell from there. So in step 5, this is where I'm going to admit that to God and another human being. It's not that bad. it's actually quite enlightening. Enlightening itself. It brings about a lighter feel. So I've taken a moral inventory. Well, now I need to admit, the faults. But I don't have to go out and admit it to the entire world. I just pick one individual I trust. Could be a sponsor, could be a clergy member, could be a counselor. But I pick one person that I trust that I will admit all my faults to. And through working as proper step 4 and a step 5 and realizing where myself is involved in each one of those experiences that I might hold a resentment, fear, or anger towards. Doesn't matter what they did, but where I realize my issue, my fault, then I'm on my way. That is where a lot of us have what we'll call a spiritual experience. There's a difference between spiritual experience and spiritual awakening. The experience is quick, it's fast. The awakening is kind of like waking up in the morning. It just takes a little time. The older we get, even more time, trust me. But that spiritual experience, sometimes fast, but the spiritual awakening sometimes slow, but they do happen. As we're working these steps, they do happen. And most of the time, our friends and our family, if we're applying ourselves to the best of our ability, will notice drastic changes in us long before we ever notice it. Then I get into step 6 and step 7, which is where I consider having God remove my character defects. And step 7 is I humbly get down on my knees and I ask Him to remove my defects of character that no longer serve Him, but will serve a greater good. Step 8, I go in and I make a list of all people I've harmed. But guess what, guys? I already did that in step 4. I might just need to add something to it. So it's no big deal on step 8. Then is step 9. It's a vital step. And this is a step that I never recommend anyone working without the help of guidance. This is where I go out and I talk to each individual person that I need to make an amends to, where I can, where it won't harm them or others. I clean my side of the street, I get it off my chest, and I don't look back from there. I make right what I can. I apologize. I make that amends, try to make that relationship whole, and I move forward because I can't live in the past because the past is going to kill me. That's where regret is. And regret and resentment is deadly to the addict and alcoholic. But once I do that first step 9, I get to go into steps 10, 11, and 12. And that's what we call living in the sunlight of the Spirit. We've been cast into the 4th dimension, as Bill Wilson calls it. So I'm cast into the 4th dimension. I'm living in the sunlight of the spirits in 10, 11, and 12, which, 10, I continue to take that inventory. 11, humbly ask God. And then 12, work in service. So if I'm working a proper 10 each and every day, I don't have to worry about going back down on these steps each and every day and working things out. I don't have to live in that anymore. I can live in steps 10, 11, and 12, and then occasionally take this, take the elevator down and work the stairs back up, work the steps back up. But if I'm in step 10, which is continue to watch out for selfishness, fear, dishonesty, and self-seeking motives. Not if, but when they pop up, because they will. We're humans. They all pop up in humans, as well as we're special because we're addicts, right? Not special. None of us are special. We're unique. My mom might tell you I'm special, but that's different. We're unique in that way. But we continue to watch out for selfishness, fear, dishonesty, and self-seeking motives. When they pop up, not if, but when, I humbly ask God to remove them. Then I go talk to a sober support, a sponsor, somebody, and kind of admit what went on, what I did, where my fault was. The 4th part of step 10 is I go and I make an amends to anyone that I need to. Now, sometimes it was just in my head or in my thoughts or in my actions, but not towards the person. So then I ask for forgiveness for myself for holding myself so high that I need to humble myself a little bit and realize that I'm in recovery. It's a practice of practice. It's not it's always progress, not perfection. And then the 5th part of step 10 is I immediately and resolutely turn my thoughts to service. Right? If I'm in service to someone else, whether it's a fellow addict, alcoholic, or just another human being, I'm not thinking of myself and my selfish ways. So 5 parts to step 10. And then 11, that's where I'm trusting God. And then 12 is where I carry the message. And that's called living in the sunlight of the Spirit. And things are pretty nice. Not only for yourself with peace, love, and joy. Kind of living happy, joyous, and free. even in the troubles of the world. Things are pretty great with that. But things are great for other people around us, our friends and family and our loved ones, because they're not dealing with our bullshit anymore. They're not dealing with the selfishness, the anger, the fear, the resentments that we have. The selfishness where we're always taking or thinking of a way to get our needs met, where we can't accept shit, can't accept anything that's going on in life because it doesn't suit our needs because we're selfish. All these things, there's 12 spiritual principles to the program, but for me, I notice honesty, selfishness, or dishonesty and selfishness, and acceptance. I didn't have any acceptance. I was selfish and I was dishonest. So if I have honesty, if I practice service to others, and acceptance in my life, things get better, kind of living happy, joyous, and free. I was told for many years I could be happy, joyous, and free. And I nodded my head and I thought, horse shit. Who's happy, joyous, and free all the time? I learned you can be. There's going to be things that pop up in life where you don't like or enjoy, or they might even kind of set you back and you get angry. But when you think about over the large spectrum, you don't even have to have that affect your entire day. You can be happy, joyous, and free each and every day. You might have speed bumps in the road that day, but you've learned the tools of how to get back to happy, joyous, and free very quickly. Otherwise, we're in trouble if we can't. We're in trouble because then we start in our heads and our resentments, and then we stop accepting things. And remember, resentments are the number one offender that lead us back out into the world of using and drinking. So resentments will kill us quicker than anything else. Bill Wilson tells me that in the book, in a little paragraph 3 times, he says, resentments will kill me. So as my great friend Brandon says, read the little black letters on the white pages in the big blue book. And when that's insufficient, go to the bigger book, my Bible, and you should be okay. So that's my message on spirituality as it pertains to my recovery. I'm freely giving this out because it was freely given to me, and I'm always happy to speak with anyone in recovery or not, or affected by it, or how to apply these principles in your affairs, even if drugs and alcohol aren't the issue. Because if I practice these principles in all my affairs, not just addiction, things get better, things get easier. So maybe next week we'll talk about spirituality and the role of my higher power and who my higher power is. And then we'll move on to the mental and emotional aspects of recovery, of total health and wellness. So that's all I got for today. Check us out online, www.recoveryfitnesswellness.com. We are doing personal training services, spiritual counseling services, nutritional guidance. We do have a new location, Full Tilt Fitness in Westerville, formerly Cardinal Fitness, which, Cardinal Fitness is moving across the street in just a few days and to the 14,000 square foot facility, which we'll be a part of. So very excited. Check us out at Recovery Fitness on Facebook or Instagram, as well as Full Throttle Fitness up in Westerville. So thank you so much. One love. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.